Hello, welcome to the Basics of Beef and Poultry Fabrication. I'm your host, Chef John Michael Lynch. This video is part of the Georgia Pro Start Culinary Series. It is made possible by a generous grant from Dexter Russell. Part 1 of the video will demonstrate a side of beef broken down into its primal cuts. Now let's get started. I would like to introduce the host of this section, Manuel Vizcaino. He is a butcher with over 40 years of experience. Next to Manuel is a full side of beef, with which he will be demonstrating primal cuts. To get you oriented, the tail is on the top and the head is pointing down. The spine is here. This is a female cow. This is her fat sac. This is the shank. A carcass is a whole animal minus the head, feet, hide, and entrails. This one is about 500 pounds. This is her left side. Manuel will be showing us primal cuts. Rib, chuck, loin, round, brisket, plate, flank. The separation you see is in between the 12th and the 13th rib. This separates the hide quarter from the front quarter and is where the carcass is inspected for grading. All beef is inspected for grading. Manuel is using the marbling grater to determine the amount of fat lines. The more thinner, tighter, and uniform the fat lines run, the higher the grade of beef. The more marbling with thin lines of fat, the more credible flavor. And you see the fat lines here. Since the amount of fat is so important, the outside fat is also measured using this special tool. Only one spot is evaluated, but the tenderloin, round, chuck, ribs, every cut will have the same grade based on this one spot. The U.S. Department of Agriculture inspection seal means that the USDA has deemed this beef edible. This is a guarantee of wholesomeness, not of quality or tenderness. This is a round stamp. The USDA grade stamp is an indication of quality. U.S. Prime, Choice, Select, Standard, Utility. This is a shield stamp. Okay, let's get started. Manuel is starting with the forequarter, which contains ribs starting from number 12. First, Manuel will mark and cut through the 4th rib with the scimitar. This is the first part of removing the rib primal cut. This primal cut lends itself to cooking methods like grilling, roasting, broiling, and sautéing. It contains 7 ribs and is next to the loin at the top, so it has some very tender sections. It is also next to the chuck. Manuel is separating the rib from the chuck. What Manuel is pulling back is the outside skirt. This is part of the diaphragm. Manuel is using a saw with flexible blade to cut the rib bones from the 12th rib to the 4th rib. This will remove the rib primal cut completely with the chine bones. As he cuts through it, Manuel is separating the rib from the plate. The plate is about 50% fat and is usually made into ground meat. From the rib, we get the prime rib, the ribeye steak, the rib loin, the cowboy ribeye, the back ribs, the boneless rib, the ribeye lip-on, and the tomahawk. The second primal cut will be the chuck. Manuel is also removing brisket and the shank with the chuck. The shank usually is added to ground beef. The chuck contains the short rib, cube steaks, stew meat, ground chuck, flat iron, shoulder tender, chuck roll, and pub steak. This is the plate. There is a lot of cartilage, which is harder to cut through the muscle. This is often made into ground beef or used as stew meat. Honing your knife is important to keep it working properly. As Manuel continues into the hindquarter, he will be removing the flank. Manuel removes just the flank steak for you to see. This thin layer of membrane that Manuel is removing is called the silver skin. The flank steak is a common fabricated cut. This cut lends itself to cooking methods like grilling, this is the flank steak, which is part of the flank. Primal cut known as loin, which start at the 13th rib, are removed next. This is a very tender part of the cow. It contains the short loin, the sirloin, the tenderloin, the top sirloin, and the bottom sirloin. From this, you get the porterhouse, T-bone, bone-in strip, strip loin, tenderloin, and more. The bottom of the sirloin contains the tri-tip, top butt, and the ball tip, which is right under the fat cap. This is right next to the round. The primary cooking method for the loin is dry heat because it's very tender. The final primal cut to show you is the round. It contains the knuckle, inside round, flat round, top round, and ground round. Moist and dry methods work well with these cuts. Primal cuts are the first divisions of the carcass. Each primary cut can be fabricated and trimmed into more cuts called subprimals. Nothing goes to waste. All the fat you see gets rendered and used. The bones are crushed and made into bone meal. In production, Manuel doesn't fabricate beef when it's hanging. He does it on a table.